Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Mike Traster, Simon Fuller, glad to have you along with us. And Mike, episode number 91. You're not bored with me already, are you?
Am I bored? No.
Okay.
But I am yawning.
It's okay. It's getting later in the day. We've done a few shows in this series. You know, we're going to start wearing down.
I need a coffee IV.
Just drip, drip, drip.
Open her up and let her roll. Right.
Episode 91. Want to have a discussion about pastors. What's on your mind there, Mike?
First thing, now, you know, I hold people's feet to the fire sometimes, but the other thing is people are people. They're human beings, right? So even if you think your pastor is a horse's ass, and they very well may be, they may be incompetent or dangerous, they may be mentally ill.
Sure.
Because they're human beings, right? So remember the fact that they're human.
Sure.
They may not belong there. They may not be able to or willing to do their job, right? They may be corrupt in any number of ways, not safe. But they're still human, and we have to be careful with them. So there's different questions. So here's the first question. I'm gonna just leave these for you to think about. If a man is ordained by man but not by God, is he in fact ordained? Think about that. If I give myself a driver's license and I print it up on a computer, does that mean I'm licensed to drive? It's a nice looking license. Can a pastor be under demon oppression or possession? They're human beings, right? Do all pastors believe in God? Do all pastors believe in God? How do you remove a pastor from a church that doesn't belong there? Probably in a group setting, you know, and you have a specific agreement, a conversation with them about their obligations.
Sure.
You know, and whether or not those things are working, you know. I've seen a pastor who was out of control twice in a church. Twice, really overtly out of control, probably more than that.
Right.
And where they clearly needed to be down the road, not in a pastoral setting.
Yeah.
They might make a good preacher, but a horrible pastor, you know. And they needed to be gone.
Right.
And now there's other pastors that need support. You know, you can disagree with somebody and say, look, I care about you, but I think you're completely off the cliff on this one, on this issue. How do you say that? So that person knows that you support them, but you don't support their position. You have to do that, you know. Do you leave it up to the people in control? Well, if you do that, if you leave it up to the elders, let's say, or the people in some kind of named authority in the church, are you abdicating your adulthood? Right? I mean, what happens when a captain of a ship is clearly incompetent? And this comes back to the same circle. Silence.
Right.
Does everybody just say, oh, well, if we say something, it's a mutiny?
And if you don't, you might crash and you might all go down with him.
Right. by crew, by captain. You're
Yeah.
going to kill your captain as well as everybody else on the boat because he wants to ride
Sinking
into the
together.
wave. Huh?
Yeah, sinking together.
Right. Yeah. So now you're all fish food. Is that what you want to accomplish? You know, because you have to think forward. If I do this, what will the result be? Oh, maybe I'll get lucky. Whew, then I'll be off the hook. You're lying to yourself. Pastor is a person who has a huge impact on other people. They have to be fit for the job,
Yeah.
and not all are. I remember a guy, he took these little scraps of paper about 1 by 2 inches, handed them out in a big bowl to like 300 people. And he said, I just want you to write down one thing. Don't put your name on it. Don't identify yourself in any way. Just write down your net worth. So I wrote down my net worth, which was small. Everybody wrote down their net worth. The next week he comes into church and he's just a little more energized than usual. And he's walking, strutting, swaggering like a rooster back and forth on the stage. And he says, well, you know, we're worth something like, I don't remember. It was a huge amount of money because there was several very, very wealthy people there. So I think he said the church, we collectively were either worth, I think it was $150 million, but I don't remember. It was a long time.
It was a big number, though.
Huge.
Yeah.
And he said, therefore, we should have like another $15 million in our account. That's 10%. Well, this guy wound up like doing something obscene in a bar a couple months later and getting, removed. But nobody ever came up to him and said to him, you're not okay. We're worried about you. You fly at 40,000 feet. The rest of us are walking on the ground. He's manic depressive. He was in a manic episode, and he was having them more and more often, right? Nobody helped him by being quiet. I don't think he could have been helped.
Sure.
But I'm not sure about that. I think he wound up doing some kind of manual labor on his own, left that pastoral world entirely. But you don't drive a guy out in a state of outrageous, violent shame where he's going to go off the cliff, and just harm himself. But not all pastors should be pastors. I had another guy, brilliant teaching pastor, brilliant, just extraordinarily gifted, back in Spokane, very famous, phenomenal preacher. I asked him one day, we were talking for a minute, I said to him, well, how often do you do marital counseling? He goes, I don't. I said, you're kidding, you're a pastor. He goes, I'm a preaching pastor, so that's my gift. I said, but why don't you do counseling? He said, that's not my gift. I'm no damn good at it. He didn't say damn, that's my word. He said, I'm no good at it. That's somebody else's gift. Interesting. I really had to think about that. And he was right.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was 100% right. And he had his ego on a leash, where our egos must be, right? And it protected him and others. And it enabled him to use his gift. Oh, was he an amazing teacher. Ken Ortiz was his name. And he would preach on the radio. I think he's still preaching. Brilliant teacher. I remember listening to him for 6 weeks preach on the life of David. Amazing. Just amazing. So gifted and so inspired. And he knew his place of giftedness.
Yeah.
And it was like, yep. And you'd think, well, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Mike, the whole episode, I'm still back to your question one. And I'm just thinking to myself, you are probably going to give me such an obvious answer, and I know we're meant to stew on these, but so who does ordain the pastor?
Ultimately, ordination is from the hand of God.
Right, and so how is that deemed legitimate or not?
I guess it's you witnessed that.
Yeah. And I'm not disagreeing, and I kind of thought that's maybe where you were going, but there is a handful going through this whole conversation of people, I could say, I have felt God.
Right.
There's a lot of people that do that on
Right.
stage. You call them performers.
Right, yeah.
And so how do you check the legitimacy of that certificate? So
Well,
to speak.
you look at their inability to accept questions and criticisms
Sure,
and their level of greed,
yeah,
you know, and how armored they are. I think of this one guy, and he's very dramatic. He's an older man. He's on the TV all the time, and he's always demanding money.
sure,
And he's very hypnotic, very hypnotic. But it's a powerful darkness in this guy, very powerful. He's extremely wealthy. He's got airplanes, and mansions, and completely, 100% Daffy Duck out of control.
yeah,
And I don't believe that it's possible to be that out of control without a demonic influence.
yeah,
So that's it.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another edition of Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Have a fantastic day.